According to the internet, the Hashira training is Demon Slayer's most boring season ever. But is it really? Demon Slayer has become one of the most popular anime of all time in a ridiculously short amount of time. And even as a secret fan, because you know, the anime community is a dangerous place, I'll be the first one to admit that a huge part of that is Studio Ufotable and the insane animation and fight choreography. So when I sat down to watch the Hashira training season, it was insane to see that all the things that made the series famous weren't there. And even though the series already gets a lot of hate, I have never, ever seen a Demon Slayer season get this much hate. But as I was watching, I realized that there were so many things that this season does incredibly well. So today, I'm gonna show you the 3 things that it does way better than any of the other seasons. But before we can do this, we need to look at why people are losing their minds in comment sections talking about how mid this season is. The first episode immediately starts with 2 of the Hashira fighting a ton of demons.
I've missed this so much. I mean, look at how hype this is.
From the get-go, you watch 2 of the most powerful demon hunters tear through a horde of demons like it's nothing. But then...
well, I really hope you enjoyed those 5 minutes of action, because apparently you're not getting a second more.
What you're going to get for the rest of the season is a lot of this, a lot of this. Oh, and I almost forgot. A lot of this.
Okay, I totally get it. Everyone is training before the final fight. This is literally the Hashira training arc, but are the people making this actually trying to lose their audience?
Check this out. There's a scene pretty early where 3 of the Hashira start fighting each other.
It's happening. It's happening.
And for a tiny moment, it genuinely feels like this series is going to give you at least a little bit of what you expected until...
wait, what? It's over. The fight was like 5 seconds long, bro. No.
And you think that's it? Only a few episodes later, there's another fight between 2 Hashira.
Yeah, okay. Are we actually getting a fight? Let's see.
12 seconds later.
So if almost none of this season is dedicated to the fights, that means all this energy is dedicated to something else, right? Right? And that's exactly what brings me to the first thing this season completely nails. When we think about animation in Demon Slayer, we immediately think about action sequences and fights. But to me, nothing is a bigger flex than a studio taking the most mundane, boring, everyday stuff and making it goddamn beautiful. Like for example, look at this moment.
Dude, why is Zenitsu climbing on a warm rock so well animated? That's crazy.
Or this moment when you see all the details in Tanjiro's breath while he's training. Or even this moment when Sanemi crushes this little demon in his hand.
Okay, I'm loving this because Studio Ufotable could have just quickly animated something decent and moved on with their lives, but they decided to do this instead, which...
I am sure that you can think of a jabillion anime that do that, where the animation is kind of mediocre during these everyday moments, but becomes beautiful when something important happens. And trust me, I completely understand that making anime is one of the toughest jobs on earth. But what I love about this season is that these tiny details, they show us that Studio Ufotable don't care that there is an action, and it shows us that they're willing to go the extra 100 miles. Something I kept asking myself was,
okay, if they're putting so much effort into this, does that mean that they're straight up giving up on the action sequences, or...
But little did I know that I would have an answer in just a couple of episodes. Because look at these scenes from the last episode and tell me they don't look as good, if not better, than anything we've seen in the previous seasons.
Okay, I take everything I said back.
When Ufotable takes this masterful animation that we usually see during fights and uses it in all these other moments, it almost feels like they're telling us that both these things matter as much. That the person who fights is as important as the fight itself. Which is actually the next thing that the season does incredibly well. So many of the characters we barely know anything about are explored in really meaningful ways. For instance, this guy.
Dude, I remember watching Demon Slayer and thinking, what the heck is wrong with this dude? Why are you always crying? Who hurt you, man?
And in this season, we discover that he's the strongest Hashira. We go through his tragic backstory. We see him interact with everyone. And we even see him fight for the first time.
What is this? Can someone please explain? When does a sword become not a sword, please?
And all that development happens in just a few episodes. And on top of that, characters that already had a bunch of screen time, they also have their moments. Take Zenitsu, for example. We know him as the cowardly comic relief character. But by the end of the season, look at what happens.
Damn, my man Zenitsu is looking weirdly confident. I like it.
But I also kept thinking about something.
Okay, so we also had character development in the previous seasons, but during action sequences, and that was very good. So why didn't we just continue doing that? Because if someone watches the previous seasons and comes to this really calm, chill season with character development and stuff, and then bam, final fight, isn't that gonna be like the weirdest thing ever?
But this scene immediately made me understand. At one point, we see Tanjiro interact with Gyu, who is literally the first demon slayer we ever got to see in this entire series.
Yeah, it's crazy because now that I think about it, we actually don't know much about Gyu, even after all this time, so
for the first time, we're getting a deeper dive into this really important character. We get to learn about the shame and guilt he carries because of two major events in his past. Passing the Demon Slayer exams despite being unconscious throughout the entire thing, and the fact that he wasn't able to protect his sister from a demon. The story connects with a feeling that most of us have probably experienced, when you feel like you don't deserve to be where you are, and that you're nothing but a fraud. And sure, sometimes it's really awesome when a character has to overcome a challenge in the heat of a fight. But let me ask you this. How real does that feel to you? All the pieces suddenly falling into place in one intense, super difficult moment.
Dude, I honestly love this exploration of Gyu because it shows us that even really strong people like a freaking Hashira can experience self-doubt, and that overcoming it is something that takes strength, courage, and patience, and not only in these big fights, these big pivotal moments, but every single day of our life. And I think that it's really subtle, but it's such a beautiful lesson.
It shows that a moment of calm is a precious chance to breathe, accept our feelings, and remember our value, even when it's hard to see. There are so many other examples of this in this season, and not just with Gyu. But the truth about all these characters is that their journeys were all linked to one special person. Which brings us to the thing that I personally think this season does better than any other season. There's a moment I will never forget from the previous season when Tanjiro says, "Whatever you do for others comes around to help you as well in the end." And this season truly feels like someone took this quote and made a whole season out of it. Tanjiro has developed in a way that perfectly showcases everything he did for others since the beginning of this series.
I'm kind of starting to realize that Tanjiro helped a pretty ridiculous amount of people. I mean, just look at Tokito's face when he sees him compared to all the other people. It's insane.
And this is great. But the problem was,
so if Tanjiro said that helping others also helps you in the end, how is all of this actually helping him?
But the more I watched, the more it actually made sense. By the end of the season, you can tell how much Tanjiro has changed as a demon slayer. He's able to clearly see the moves of the Hashira and to fight on a similar level as them.
Okay, honestly, I am really proud of our boy Tanjiro because do you remember how he was in the beginning of the series compared to how he is now? It's like a huge change.
This season shows us that Tanjiro became stronger thanks to the people he helped along the way. Check this out. There's a scene where Genya gives him a tip that later allows him to push the rock he couldn't even move. Demon Slayer starts as the story of a boy who lost his family. But it becomes the story of a boy who creates a new family and is going to do everything in his power not to lose it once again. By the time the season ends, not only is Tanjiro tougher than he once was, but he is also stronger, knowing he can protect the bonds he forged along the way. Knowing he is once again a big brother. This season has a way to connect all the dots from Demon Slayer in a way that makes you feel so happy that you kept watching. I was about to start the last episode and I was really enjoying what this season was doing. But as I accepted that there just wouldn't be action during the season,
I cannot believe you waited till the last episode to go this hard. How could you do this to me, Demon Slayer? Oh!
I honestly completely understand why the last episode has so much hype. Right before it ends, the stakes are high and the characters are developed in a way that makes us attached to them. This season isn't necessarily the best Demon Slayer season when it comes to fights or action sequences. But it was never about that. Instead, it lays the groundwork for what is to come, and it builds up in a way that makes you so excited for the next part. It takes a step back to make sure there's a solid foundation for some of the best anime we've ever seen, which I love because in our own lives, it can also be helpful to take a break. I'm sure that almost everyone watching this has already at some point felt like they were missing out on something big like a party or going out with friends or checking out the last thing our crush posted on Instagram. Oh my god, a picture of your breakfast? That is so interesting. And this also applies to work. I always hear people talking about their training arc and mentioning stuff like, I'm going to the gym, I'm working 25 hours a day, I'm sleeping 10 minutes a week. No, but honestly, dude, I can be like that sometimes. And I cannot tell you how many times I felt terrible for not being productive every single second of the day. But notice how in this season, every character takes a break so that in the end, they can become the strongest versions of themselves. This isn't a flashy, epic, inspiring training arc. For an anime that is so hated for putting style over substance, I am amazed. Not only is this a unique season that cements the entire story so far, but it also stands out from any other training arc I've ever seen. Because unlike most shonen training arcs that purely focus on getting stronger, this one balances physical strength with introspection, emotional resilience, and personal growth, which makes the final episode feel earned and deeply meaningful. Oh, and of course, hype as f.